Hi, I'm Pakolokoko, the founder and president of The Runway. Welcome to the Runway Replays, where we bring you gems in the form of recordings from our past online events. All our activities and programs are specially designed to set you up to soar to become the best version of you. I hope that you enjoy the following recording and that you continue to engage with us.
We have the professional mentorship program. So that is a career peer-to-peer mentorship program. We have upperclassmen matched with lowerclassmen. So that would just be like, say, a fourth year student matched with a second year or first year student. And they would just help them with monthly sessions where they give them guidance with regards to their career, just to help them follow the right direction and experience the most growth that they can in their career. And then lastly, we have the employability workshop series. And this here today is one of these sessions that are part of this series. And these sessions are mainly just to help us become more employable, learn how to find jobs, better our employment prospects. So it's about us and our employment once we are leaving the international setting. So that's what we're doing. We can move on now to the job application process. So this is what we are here for today. This is the entire process as it would look. It would start with a job application, followed by online tests, assessment center, video interview, video or telephone interview, a face-to-face interview, and then finally the job offer. And we're going to have a session 2 weeks from now, which will be about what to do once you get the job. So me and Marigold are going to go into more detail regarding that. It was fine. We're going to go into more detail regarding these. But to start, I wanted to ask you guys a question before we kind of get into things. Looking at this entire process from what you guys know, what you guys have experienced, which parts of this do you think you are not likely to come across when you start looking for work in Botswana? Please answer me, guys. Interact with me. The online tests, video interview, okay. Online tests, yeah. Interesting. These are interesting answers. I think they're very interesting because video interview, yeah, I was of these same sentiments, but we can go to the next slide now. So I will explain what I was just speaking about. Now we are moving on to the differences by companies. And the first kind of point we wanted to illustrate was that the process I just showed you guys will not be the same for every company. So before we get into Botswana, looking at the UK on the left, the process can be very long, it can be very short. So looking at the PPF, they just do a website application and then a final interview. Can be that short, bypassing everything else that was in between. Prudential does a CV and cover letter, and then an interview, a telephone interview, and then a face-to-face interview. And then the Bank of England would do the entire process as it looks. Now in Botswana, in finance specifically, since I'm biased, sorry. Within Botswana, the Botswana finance sector, I think when I was doing my research, I was also expecting that the application process would probably just be like an application and then an interview. But I was very, very, very what's the word? Very interested. I don't know. Yeah, I was amazed to find out that they have a lot more to the processes. So I listed a few examples over there. Old Mutual Botswana, there's Old Mutual Botswana and Old Mutual Life Insurance Botswana. So for the Old Mutual Botswana, the company in general would do an application followed by ability tests and occupational personality questionnaire, and then 2 final interviews. The Mutual Life Insurance, however, which was started 4 years ago, it's a small department. They just do an application followed by a final interview. Very short process. Deloitte would do a website application, a final interview, but then if they are not satisfied with the candidates, they will then introduce psychometric tests and then do a second final interview. And I think we can kind of expect it because Deloitte is a big, like these are big companies, they're international. So whatever recruitment processes we're kind of seeing in the UK, in the US and Europe, they probably pass them down. And I also wanted to mention that Deloitte apparently mainly hires from BAC, but it also does hire internationally. It does hire international students, which is us, and they would do that via smart recruiters. So if you're interested in a career in Deloitte, check out smart recruiters. If you want to go back to Botswana, and I think they said they hire mainly for audit. So if you're interested in audit, Deloitte is definitely something to look out for in Botswana. And then for Standard Chartered, they have they have a very, very, very long process, which is an application followed by various tests. There's a situational judgment test. There's the numeracy and logical test. There's 2 different interviews, a video interview and a 3-part virtual interview. It's a much, much, much longer and detailed process than what I think I would have thought or expected. So the takeaway, I guess, I think there's something here. Sorry, my screen is hiding this. And it's PwC. I think you can see that, but it is also a very straightforward. It's a straightforward application process. But for PwC in particular, they do their assessments. They do their tests in person usually, and apparently even during or through COVID, they are still doing them in person. They've only just introduced the online option, but they still retain the in-person option. And I think it's a worldwide company policy. So anytime you're applying to PwC, you probably expect to be shading for the tests, but we'll get into the test later. But I think the takeaway is that the process or the different parts of the process that we're going to look at today, do make sure that you take all of them into consideration, because you will probably you'll probably meet them, not just if you're applying internationally or to like your developed countries. Now, before we start the actual application, it would do you a world of justice to have something like this, which is an Excel submissions tracker. So you just set this up in Excel, open up a file, have a file that looks like that. So the point of the tracker is to keep you organized. So if you're about to enter an application period or an application season, you'll probably have a number of applications that you want to put in. You'll probably have a number of applications that you come across when you when you visit different websites. Just use this to kind of list them down, and then you can use the application deadlines to kind of put them in order and use that to plan out your month or your 2 months, how you will integrate the application process as like some kind of job into your everyday life. And just to give it proper time, you will record any like tests or assessment centers or interviews that you have, and put them all in there for the different roles that you are applying for or have already applied for. So date submitted, if you've applied for something, then you can keep recording all the different stages of the assessment for them, so that you can keep order of when you have different interviews and stuff like that, and plan your time well. And also there's also this part which is the job description keywords. So when you're doing applications, something you should probably have is a folder where, because if you're doing CVs and if you're doing cover letters for a different cover letter for every company, and there's also a job description. There's a different job description for every company. So essentially, there's something that they are looking for. Make sure that you get a copy of the job description, because the link to the job advert might expire. You're going to be using that when you get to the interview stages, because they're still going to be, you're still trying to portray what they've said they want in their job description. So keep a copy of that. Keep a copy of every cover letter that you submit for the different applications, just to refer back to at when you enter the later stages, in case there's something that you've put in there that you might have forgotten and they're going to ask you about it. Yeah, so that's all I think about the tracker. So now the application itself, you you're either doing an email or an actual application. For the email, you could have a job advert, or you might be doing a speculative email. So for an email for a job advert, the only thing really to pay attention to is email etiquette. So first things first, the subject, make sure you do not forget the subject line. Name of applicant, so your name, I'd write something like Refula dash, excuse me, application for actuarial intern, and then if there's a vacancy code or a job reference number, put that in. And then greetings, don't use informal language, like hi, hey, greetings, make sure that you say something like greetings, good day, good afternoon, dear sir, madam, standard formal greetings. Skip a line. I know some people forget to skip lines between their greetings, their paragraphs, their kind regards, their names. Make sure that you maintain the spaces as I've kind of maintained them. We're looking on the left, in case you guys are lost. But yeah, make sure to maintain the spaces as I've kind of maintained them. And then, yeah, after the greetings, just something simple. Please find attached my CV and cover letter in response to job advert for the position, the actual intern position advertised on your site. That's where, if that was where it was advertised. And then I look forward to hearing from you soon, or I hope my application will be taken into consideration. Kind regards, right? And then if you're doing a speculative application, that is when you don't have a job advert. So you're basically asking a company to create a job for you. Yeah, you're asking a company to create a job for you. So you'd send out a speculative application, and since there isn't any job advert, no one knows you, no one even knows you're coming. You have to add a bit more detail than you would with a normal job advert application. So the format you would follow would probably be sort of like when you're writing a cover letter. So for the subject will be a little different, because, well, there isn't an application, there isn't an ad. So you put your name and then put your qualifications or your title, who you are, yeah. And then dear name, it starts with dear name or greetings, good day. So you'd say predominantly use dear and then put a name, because for speculative applications, it is advised to go through the website, go through the company, their LinkedIn, find a person, call the company, visit the company if you can, find a person in the department, an actual person you can speak to, and get their contact details so that you send the application to them instead of, sending the application to a general mailbox that will probably not get seen by anyone. So do try to make sure you get a particular email and a name of a person. Yeah, and I forgot to mention, if you have a recommendation from someone, like say someone who works in the company or something, you could probably state their name in the subject. I think, I'm not sure. I think Mr. Mlungisi can confirm if that would be okay later. But yeah. So then the first paragraph, you would outline your knowledge of the company, how you came to be aware of them, what you find interesting about them. So sort of similar to the first paragraph in a cover letter, where you are telling the company why you like them, why you really, really like them. And then paragraph 2, you will summarize who you are and why exactly you're emailing. These don't have to be long paragraphs. It's just to add the spaces so it looks better in a sense. So summarize who you are and why you're emailing can be 1 or 2 sentences. The third paragraph, explain what you can offer and how and why you are a valuable addition to the team. So give a bit more detail about you. Sorry, guys. Give a bit more detail about you, your skills, yeah, and all of that. And then paragraph 4, summarize your interests for working for them, and then draw attention to your CV and cover letter. Make sure to write a cover letter just to make it more personal and to give much, much more detail as to why you want to work for the company, so that they probably will hear you. And then just close that off. I look forward to hearing from you soon. Kind regards, all of that. Make sure that you pay attention to grammar for your emails. You are being assessed at every single stage. So just make sure things like grammar, things like spacing, you don't forget your kind regards, just general things. So we can move on now to the application. So applications, you will either have an online application or a downloadable form. So these are usually returned by email. We have a form here, an example that is by Botswana Insurance Company. Yeah, I got that from the website. So you just fill in a few details about yourself, your qualifications, and why you're the best candidate for the job, and then send that with a CV. That's the format for the forms. And then if you're doing a online application, these will usually require you to make an account and then save, return data. They are very long, very tedious. They take the format of a CV, so they ask you about a lot of personal details and more, I think, because they also add like address, 3 years address sometimes, and things like that. So because they take the format of a CV, you can just use your CV to copy and paste most things, regarding your qualifications, skills, where they're asking about skills and things like that. And then just put them in. And then at the end, they will have somewhere where they ask you about your motivations, maybe for working for the company. They'll usually ask you a question, or like, yeah, what you know about the company, your interests, all of that. You should take your time, I'd say, to answer those questions. Draft something, because they'll usually be like 500 word. Write something up to 500 words. So just write something, draft it down, give it to someone to check, and copy for a tip. Copy and paste those answers into a Word document to refer to them in future, because like we said, interviewers will refer back to the answers you give at every single stage of the process. So every time you give information, you write an essay, you write an essay or something, just make sure that you keep that. If you're submitting a form, make sure that you keep a copy of the form that you submit, so that before all your interviews, refer back to all those things. And then we have psychometric tests, which are a range of tests that just test a candidate's attitude. So we have numeracy, verbal, literacy, abstract reasoning, logical reasoning, skill-based, various tests. I think there's even more than this. These are just some of them. But the ones we'll focus on are numeracy tests, logical, verbal, and situational judgment. So for the numeracy test, these are like basic math, percentages, ratios, just primary school math. But the problem with that kind of math is it dribbles a lot. The tests are very difficult. They're not very difficult. They're very easy, but very difficult because of the time pressure, the time aspect that they put on these tests. So from what I hear, they are designed in such a way that you're not supposed to be able to finish them. So the only way to get through them is to make sure that you keep practicing them, to be honest, so that you learn how to be quicker at them and beating the time. But yeah, besides that, numeracy tests, it's just a math test, just testing if you can handle a bit of numbers and under time conditions. And then the logical test is what we have here, the example that we have here. And so these are sequences, patterns, all of that. I'm sure you can see. these are not nice tests to do. All these pattern sequence tests. I think they sometimes appear in numeracy tests as well. Sometimes they combine the numeracy with the logical, but then under just primarily numeracy. So sometimes you won't have a logical test, but you will see the sequences and patterns within the numeracy test. It would be this. Yeah, that's what it looks like. And then the verbal test just tests your ability to communicate, comprehend English. So that's what we have on the left. It would look something like that, just true, false, cannot say questions, and different passages. This would probably be like one of them. And then after this, you will get a different passage to read and then 3 more questions, something like that. And then the situational judgment test is something that looks like that. It basically just looks at how you would react in different situations. It's more of a personality test, just to see how you would place within the company, looking at how you judge different situations. So that is it for me. I'm going to hand over to Marigold to take us through the rest of the process. And
thank you, Fifi. So yeah, she's covered off kind of the first half of the application process. And now we'll go on to the assessment center. What is a assessment center? It's not a location or place. It's more of the process itself. You just call it assessment center. And during this time, it's like a whole day that has been set aside for you to either come onto location, but because of COVID, there's been a lot of virtual assessment centers, but it still covers the same aspects of it. The assessment center is to test your values, strengths, competencies, and technical abilities. So for any company, the hiring process is long, it's expensive, you need to take some time out, you're not working during that period for the interviewers or assessors. So they try and look at as many candidates at once. So the assessment center is a place where you meet various people who are gunning for your role. I say your role because you will get it. Who are gunning for your role, and they're trying to see how you would work best in a situation of competition. And this is an opportunity for you to demonstrate a wider range of skills compared to the other stages. As Fifi was talking, these are mainly all based on a computer. So you're answering questions that they have for you, you're filling out tests or forms. But here you can demonstrate nonverbal skills, like how you interact with people, are you sociable, how can you communicate? And these are all important things working with people. Each exercise will simulate different aspects of the role. and the work environment. So we'll look at some of the tasks that you may bump into. Group exercises. These test how well you work with a team. Can you collaborate with other people? If someone is more dominant, how do you handle that? Are you able to put your ideas across? Are you able to explain yourself to other people so that they can get on board with what you're saying? And role-playing exercises. So these are interactive sessions where you kind of act, you put on this role. Say the assessor will say, I'm a customer, I'm a disgruntled customer. How would you help me? And they just want to see how you'd perform on a day-to-day basis. You'd also have an in-tray exercise. So they'll give you a bunch of papers, they'll give you different tasks, and they want to see how you prioritize administrative tasks. How are you going to work through multiple deadlines at once? So another version of this is the e-tray. It's just an electronic version of it. So say you'll be put into their computer room and you'll get multiple emails sent to you. They just want to see how will you prioritize, who are you going to give priority over, whose email are you going to respond to first, how are you going to tackle multiple tasks, how do you handle multiple deadlines? And as you know, people who've been through school, I feel like this is something we should excel at because we get given 6 different deadlines in 1 week. So we've been practicing for a while. And you could be given a presentation. This can be either on the spot where from the group exercise, you're asked to present your findings or to present what your conclusions and recommendations are. But it can also be something that's on the spot where they can, something that is planned, where they can give you material beforehand and ask you to, say, present a case study or to research something and then come and present it to them. The main reason for this is to assess your verbal communication. Are you able to portray your information to other people? Because what I know is not specifically what your audience knows. Now, can I make sure that they hear my point and it comes across well? And psychometric tests, so the ones that Fifi just spoke about, if the hiring process does not include online psychometric tests, this is the perfect place to do it. So she had mentioned in the beginning that you can do it on paper where you shade. So they'll just print out various things for you to fill out. You circle, like multiple choice questions that we did in primary school. And then lastly, you could do interviews. So this one is particularly used if multiple roles have been advertised. If a company is hiring for, say, 6 roles, once you've gone through the other exercises of the day or through various points throughout the day, you will interview with the different heads of departments so that they can see if you are who they're looking for. Do you match the job description? Do you match the person's specifications? Can you fit well within their team? All right, so speaking of interviews, this is a very common technique used in order to successfully answer behavioral or strength-based questions. Now, the STAR approach, I don't know if many of you have heard of it before, but it really is like key when you're answering a question. This is a structured method, and each of these letters, anagrams, stand for: S is the situation, the task at hand, the actions taken, and the result of the situation. We'll look at them individually. So S is the situation. You need to make sure that you set the scene because the assessor or interviewer was not there, so they do not know what is going on. So you have to set the scene, explain what is needed, explain what is going on, and be specific. Try give as much detail as possible. Obviously, don't take too long, but try give enough detail while remaining concise. Then we move on to the task. What was the task at hand? What were you doing? What is the goal of what you were doing? The interviewer, again, is not there. So give detail. Make sure you give detail. Then we'll move on to actions. What did you do to try and achieve the goal that was set? What was your contribution? Even if you're working in a group setting, it's very key that you focus on you, because they're not trying to hire the whole group that was there. They're trying to hire you. So aim to use I statements, not we. I know it can be hard because, I think as people, our default setting is not to constantly talk about ourselves like that. Anyway, to be fair, there's people who talk about themselves a lot, but our default setting is really not that. So you need to make sure that you always revert back to, I did this and I suggested this. 1, 2, 3. Make sure you focus on you. Then lastly is the results. What was the outcome? And what did your actions do? Did they help anything? Make sure that you talk about your learning points. What did you learn from it? What did you get from the whole situation, the whole task? Because an employer wants to know that whatever you go through, you can take something from it. You are always evolving, you are always learning, and you can bring more to the table for them. So because we've talked about this, lastly, we'll talk about the interview. Once you've gone through the assessment center, you can come to either a video interview, which would be kind of like this, over not Zoom per se, but the technology is set up to ask you a question. You have 1 minute to think about it, and then it's pre-recorded. Then you'd record yourself answering that question. And these are usually used in instances where many candidates have fallen into what they have found ideal. So now they're just trying to, cut off the extracts and to find the prime candidate. Alternatively, you could go through a telephone interview. Again, same thing. There could have been multiple people who fell into the criteria that we're looking for. And now they're just trying to find out more about you. They're trying to hear, okay, what can this person bring to the table? What do they have to offer? And always know that getting to the interview stage, that in itself is an achievement, because you've gone through the application process, you've gone through, the psychometric tests, the assessment center in itself. The assessment center is like going to war, basically, because there's other students that are coming there, there's other candidates that are coming there, and you have to make sure that you stand out, but still be yourself. So don't try and be this loud person. Yes, I'm loud, hear me. No, just be yourself, because they're trying to hire you. You're not going to be acting every day. You're going to forget at some point. And speaking of forgetting, as Fifi mentioned earlier, note down any documents that you send in before you get to this interview. Make sure that you reread all of those things, because you don't want to be caught as if you're lying. Imagine they ask you, oh, so from your application process, you told us that in your spare time, you like to, I don't know, build computers from scratch. And you're like, I don't do that. Obviously, don't lie in your application process. Let's start there. Don't lie. But make sure that you know what you've put down, so that when they ask you that question, you can refer back to the point, what they're trying to ask about, and then and then you can add on to it. And so ultimately, all the questions that they ask you is, to find out, why should we hire you? And the questions vary. The dreaded question is, tell me about yourself. So many people don't like this question because you don't know where to start. What are you looking for? What should I tell you? But I think when you're answering this question, always try and give 3 things and structure your answer, as we just talked, the STAR approach. Structure your answer so that, 1, tell them what you're about to tell them. So if they say, tell me 3 things, tell me something about yourself, you'll answer, I'll tell you 3 things. I'll tell you my professional background, personal background, and my interests. And that way they know what you're about to tell them. And then you can go through your answer. Be confident about it, because you're trying to sell yourself, not in a weird way, but you're trying to sell your brand and who you are. so that they can see, are you going to fit into the organization? And always have questions prepared for the assessors so that you can also find out, are these people going to be, people who I can rely on? Are they going to be helpful? And how well will I fit working with these people on a day-to-day? Because you don't want to be put in a situation where the culture is something that constricts you. You feel like you can't grow in this environment, or there's no opportunities for promotion for new people. Make sure you have questions ready beforehand. And plus, it shows interest if you have questions for the interviewers, because now they see that, okay, this person has done their research. They want to find out more. They're really interested in this role. They're really interested in our company. And I think if they're explaining to you answers to your question, have a pen and paper, and write it down. That also is reinforcement. This person cares, And yeah, I think that's about it. If you do have any questions, please feel free to unmute or write it in the chat. I'll just quickly open the chat now.
I just wanted to mention, I forgot to mention that you can get psychometric test resources online for free. There's many, many, many free resources if you want to practice.
Yep.
But yeah, if you have any questions, we take questions about the application process, any part of the process you weren't sure about, weren't clear about, or might want to understand something. Or are you guys saving them for our special guest? Is it because it's us?
We can answer, guys. We are intelligent.
We know.
Okay, so while we're waiting on answers, I'll go on about interview questions. So, like I said, there's the tell me about yourself. Some of these questions you can preempt them. You can, like Fifi said, there's so many things on the internet available. You can look up competency-based questions. You can look up strength-based questions so that you prepare for them. And once they ask you, you're like, I'm ready. I got you. And you have an answer ready. And I feel like having questions, having gone through questions before, you're not kind of shaken, even if it's the same question at the essence, but twisted in a different way. You already have something that you can pick from. If, say, you had prepared, tell me about yourself, and you had prepared those 3 things, but then they ask you, tell me about your professional background, you know that, okay, I have this in my answer that I thought of. I can pick from here. And from another question that you have, you can pick from there, put it together, mmata.com, and have a good answer for them.
Yeah, I was just remembering our placement officer once was telling us that, before you start all these things, sometimes you can just like sit down with yourself, identify what your skills are, and then, different examples for different skills. You can have many examples for different skills, and then you can kind of pick with every application, okay, teamwork, oh, I once did this. This applies for teamwork as well as leadership skills, as well as this. And then you can use it in different ways or to portray a different skill with the STAR method at any time.
Yeah. And for you to identify what skills they'll probably ask about, go on their website, see what their values are, see what they're looking for. The job description that Fifi mentioned, go look at that, go pick out the keywords, go pick out what they've highlighted, because they are trying to, find someone. So they try and make it, I say as easy. Their application process is never easy, but they try to make it as easy as possible for you to see what they want, because they'll kind of highlight, okay, essential skills, whatever is like additional skills that may be an advantage, something that you can leverage against. The application process, it takes time as well. So do not be discouraged, no matter how many rejection letters you get, because at each stage, they review what you've submitted. At each stage, they review your results. Sometimes you make it through, sometimes you don't make it through. Make sure you persevere. You learn to work with failure. Your attitude towards failure shouldn't be something that destroys you and crushes you and you're like, I'm done. Make sure that you learn from that application. What did I go wrong? Where did I go wrong? What did I do? What can I improve? If you failed the psychometric test, now you can go online, you can look up resources, you can practice some more, and then try again. And I think they do give you feedback sometimes. Sometimes it's not very personalized, but they do give you some type of feedback. So look at that and then see what you can improve from.
Oh, I hope you guys are cool. I hope you guys learned from us. Did you? Please answer that. Did you learn?
Did you learn anything?
I hope you guys learned. Yeah, I think we can pass over to Mr. MLUNGISI to Mr. Jackalas to take us through what he has planned. Yes, you did. Thank you. Interviews are...
I'll just stop sharing my screen now.
Just a reminder that interviews are robust systems, and sometimes these systems miss the value we bring as candidates. That is true. And sometimes these are computer applications that processed by computers. I think apparently which is why you need to be careful. Yeah, anyway, we can now start getting our tips. Very, very special tips from our special guest. Mr. Jackalas? Oh, yeah, he's here.
Should I say good evening or good afternoon? Because it looks like we are all in different time zones.
Afternoon works.
Afternoon works.
Yeah, sun is still out.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let me just begin by thanking you, Runway, if I can call you such a unique name. Thanks for giving me an opportunity to engage with yourselves. What I'm going to do, I'm going to speak from the heart, not from the brain. So from the heart is more what I think, what I feel, without diluting anything. So I'm currently managing a company called Mmata, which has the responsibility of connecting talent in Botswana. So there are a number of companies which do similar type of work that I'm into. With myself, I'm employed as well as the Senior HR Director for Diamond Trading Company Botswana. I've been a Senior HR Director for probably now 13 years for different companies. Diamond Trading Company Botswana, Depswana, Murupule Coal Mine, some of you might know it, in Palape, and Mascom Wireless. So those are the key companies that I've worked for. So I've started this company just to assist in terms of providing a link between job seekers and organizations. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to interact with yourselves. I hope what I share with you, like I said, from the heart, you'll find it quite meaningful. And some of it you can take, some of it you can throw it in the big dustbin and search for your own North Star. Because the journey of employment, unfortunately, falls solely directly upon each and every single individual. So it's up to you in terms of which route you're going to take. Now, the Botswana market, just as a way of introduction, is quite a difficult one at the moment, as you all might be aware. The unemployment is pretty high, probably sitting in the 20%. And the universities are busy churning out graduates left, right, and center who can't fit into the demand. So the demand and supply side of labor is very imbalanced, if I can put it as such. Secondly, there's been an outcry around what is it that the universities are churning out? Are they churning out what is really required in the market? So that information is out there. I think I will encourage you to just be on the lookout. I know sometimes when you're in varsity, when you come out from varsity, the hard reality hits you because it's like here's a system that has taken care of you, and up to the tail end, you find that it's very, very difficult. But the encouragement again is that if you guys are all over the world and there's this globalization, the world's becoming small, etc. Again, the encouragement I would put forward. I know I can get questions. Please interrupt because I can't see your hands. If you have any question, just shout and then I'll stop. So I've got a younger brother, for example, who studied in Australia, and I've said to him, don't even think of coming back. If you can be a global player and seek a path that makes you a global player, so be it. So the skills, the boundaries that used to keep skills locked into countries are now smaller and smaller, and there are less restrictions. Especially now, especially the health sector with this COVID-19 and so on, we are finding that there are lots of people who require assistance in terms of from the nursing field and from the medical field. So what I'm going to share with you is just quickly areas of focus. I'll move very quickly because the two presenters stole a large portion of what I was going to share with you, but I'll look at it at a different angle. I'll just touch on key highlights. So I'll move very fast so that we can have an open discussion. So it's popular recruitment assessment types in Botswana. And the first presenter was very, very correct. I mean, depending on the company, on the organization, I know in DBS, for example, where I've also worked, we use video interviews, we use all assessments, we use telephone interviews, we use psychometric assessments, we use role plays, we use gamification, etc., etc. So in terms of assessments, it depends on the organization. The more multinational it is, the more likely it is to have world-class assessment, recruitment and selection techniques. And then how to prepare for different assessment types. If you don't get anything, the most important thing is you have to be real and true to yourself. And somebody did highlight it again earlier on in terms of how to remain real, because some of these assessments can pick if you are lying or honesty. They've got an honesty factor built into it. So they will ask a question in so many different angles. So they can easily pick if you are trying to act big, etc., if I can use that word. So what I always say to people is be yourself, be real, have integrity, be credible, be honest. Yes, there is the big, bad, ugly side of recruitment, which I'll touch on at the end. But overall, I like to say to people that honesty, truthfulness, credibility, integrity must prevail. And then if I don't touch on this, I mean, oral interview tips and etiquette, it's very, very important. The most important thing is you must research on the organization and research even on the individuals that work in that organization, because people are different. There are people that you can go into and say "Eita." There are people that expect you to say "Dumela re." And then you click with them. It doesn't harm. You know, sometimes you need to understand the other person so that the other person can relate with you. So if you are going to engage with a person, you must understand what makes that person tick. But obviously, it's not about losing your morals, losing your integrity, like I said, and losing your values, if I can put it as such. Professional look really depends on where you are going. If you're going to go for an interview as an artisan, I mean, you can put on jeans and one of these reflective shirts. But if you're going to go to the banking industry, you know, you have to, you know, that they wear suit and ties, etc. So if you're going to go and work in a IT firm, etc. So it really depends. So you just need to do your research and just make sure that you are aligned. And so if you are true to yourself, you will not miss these tips. Okay, let me move on. So in terms of recruitment that we use in Botswana, they're varied. It depends on the organization. So there are many different types of recruitment methods that companies use, and not all the jobs have the same type of technique. Okay. Largely, organizations recruit internally because it's cheaper to do so than advertising externally. It also creates for organizations progression path for employees. So if there's I know people normally talk about, hey, 10 years experience, yeah, that's the only disadvantage. So what I can encourage you to do is that if now you have opportunities to find internships or attachments, you need to do so now, earlier on. Don't wait up until the end. So if there's an organization that you like and you can volunteer your services, so that you start at the bottom up and you start creating rapport, you start creating that relationship with that organization. It's important that you start looking now and knowing which organizations or which industry am I going to be looking for or working for. So unfortunately, it's not like most organizations have graduate development programs. Some have these internships that probably last for about 2 years. And then, believe me, most now organizations, especially with entry level, they recruit from those types of positions. Say if you are an intern and you've been interning for 2 years and a position, an entry level positions becomes vacant, they can easily take you. So it's important that you start looking for positions earlier on. Okay. Let me move. If they advertise externally, I think again it was well presented earlier on. You know, advertising externally can be in various forms, which I'll touch on. There are lots of options. And then normally when companies advertise externally, they are very specific in terms of what it is that they want. So if they want a graduate for internship, or if they want an experienced person, it will be clearly stipulated in the advert. So again, you need to put your feelers out there. You need to register in the relevant sites, recruitment sites that will enable you to have visibility of what is happening. There's career pool. There are many of them in Botswana. there's Career Pool, and there's what we own right now, which is Tsamereko, which is what we are trying to also do. So to create visibility for positions. So register on these sites and be on the lookout. Print advertising is not dead. Your Michi, your Sunday Standard, The Voice, a lot of companies still advertise in newspapers. So once again, you need to have sight of these and be able to look for opportunities that fit into what is it that you want. Big now, which is again, like what I said, most companies like Botswana, probably your banks in Botswana, FNB, your Barclays, etc. They have their own recruitment sites. So you need to also log into their sites. You need to log into other sites as well that exist in the country, so that you are able to have visibility of what's happening. Now, the biggie, social media. Let me just be honest with you, is that sometimes when you apply, when we do our reference, we look at your pages. We look at your pages, we look at your Twitter, we look at your Facebook. I don't know what else is new out there that our comms teams look at. But so your behavior, because remember, when you are recruiting, we don't know you. So we are assessing your behavior, and we are saying, does your behavior, can we predict from what we see whether or not this person will be able to fit into the culture of the organization and bring about positive impact? So once again, depending on the organization, I mean, if depending on what you display on your Facebook page and your social media pages, and then you are applying for certain roles and certain jobs, it can either support or your application, or it can negate your application. So like the bottom line there, you can use social media to screen candidates, assessing their suitability based on the content of their online posts. Okay. Talent search I've touched on. It's recruitment agencies that you need to log on to. There are many of them, like I said, Career Pool, there's HRMC, there's Tsamereko, there's there are a couple of them in Botswana. I should have listed them for you, but you can search those and then you'll clearly see them. I've touched on recruitment agencies. I'm not going to touch too much on them. Another biggie now is around employee referrals. This is where now people that know you refer you. So that's why it's important for you to network and start having a support network of people out there, especially if you're looking for a job. Because people normally now are referred as well to organizations. Some companies like DBS in Botswana, if you refer an employee, if somebody refers an employee and the employee becomes successful in the selection process, that person gets an award. So that practice exists in pockets in Botswana. So my encouragement to yourselves, in your LinkedIn profiles, do network, do find yourself mentors earlier on. You need coaches earlier on that can help you navigate, especially from your varsity life to your either employment or unemployment and then employment life. There's what companies now call boomerang employees, which is what companies are hiring. These are ex-employees that left on good condition, and then these are brought back. I don't want to dwell too much on this. So that's the recruitment techniques that I was touching on. And then in terms of selection, again, you guys really touched on it quite a lot. So the recruitment and selection. Now, selection is where now you want to choose. Okay, so your accomplishment record is very, very important. This is your education, your job experience, your past achievements. So what you guys are doing, your hobbies, your involvement in community work, your hobbies, because you guys are still more in the entry level, you're about to become employed. So it's important that you hone those skills, and part and parcel of what you're doing right now is important in terms of building that skill set. So keep on, I'm quite impressed. Keep on doing it. And then if you are involved in other community projects, that's where other organizations see you. I know F&B is quite big in community projects, other companies are. So lend a hand, give, and more shall be given unto you. Your CV must be relevant to what you're applying for. You can't use one CV for each and every single organization and for whatever jobs you're applying for. So you need to make sure that you tweak your CV to be aligned to what is being looked for. But more importantly, I'm not good. I'm not a good CV formatter. But your formatting of your CV, you need to make sure that you take it to the right people. There are now people out there that spend time and make your CVs look great and appealing. Okay. So your biographical data, which is mostly in your CV, which is what I touched about earlier on, in terms of the companies searching for your behaviors, your past events, what you're involved in, what you did. It's important that it comes out in your CV, because you need to be above average. If there are 13,000, I remember there's a position we're advertising for diamond sorters. There are about 10,000 people that applied, and we're looking for 7 people. So that kind of recruitment becomes very, very rigorous. Somebody touched on cognitive ability assessments. I do quite a lot of those. I forgot to tell you. I'm also a registered industrial and organizational psychologist. So we do cognitive ability tests. I love these to bits. I hate doing them, like somebody said earlier on. They are quite irritating, but I love assessing people. I love analyzing the results. There are a number of tests. The ones that I love talk to your thinking process. What level are you thinking? Do you think strategic? If you're asked the question, the one about the star, say, for example, I say, give me an example of a time when you solved a problem and it was a complex problem. Tell me how you went about it. And then you just give me an example that the problem was the door was broken. So your examples must be strategic. So there are different types of levels in terms of how you give examples and how we can test whether this one is just an operational person. This one is a strategic person. This one is a supervisory level. So you need to pick your examples that show that you think beyond the here and now. You are futuristic, and you are well read, and your problem solving example can be ranked above. So, for example, if you can only get to that level of thinking if you're exposed to many scenarios and situations. So you need to dive in deep into situations. You need to, at this moment, you need to explore. You need to immerse yourself in projects. You need to meet different people. You need to be as diverse as possible. You need to be open, and again, obviously still rooted to your values. I won't touch on emotional tests. These just test how you react to situations. I mean, if you are fired, if you don't get a job, do you become wild, violent, or do you become stable, etc., etc. So we also do emotional tests. I talked about integrity tests. Are you trustworthy? Are you honest? Are you dependable? Do you have counterproductive behaviors as disciplinary problems, sabotage, theft, absenteeism, etc.? So there are tests that can measure that, which we also do for companies in Botswana. The employment interview, which is what somebody touched on about STAR, it's really the most common and popular type of assessment method, where you just sit across the room, across the table, and people ask you competency-based questions, etc., etc., and you have to answer them. So this is where you talk to how are you dressed, how do you sit, how do you look at the people, are you confident, are you relaxed, are you well prepared? Again, there are coaches that can prepare you for the interview stage. So what companies can also do is that they can ask you job knowledge tests. So if you are going to, for example, I love this quite a lot. If you are going to be a mechanic, for example, I can ask you a specific test just around solving a problem around a vehicle, if I had to give an example. So those are job knowledge tests. Personality tests, they test your preferences, your motivation, your interests, very key to do so that you understand the person as a whole. And then the reference check is simple. It's where we call a number of people that you have put in your application form and we ask them to tell us about you. Situational judgment tests. I'm just moving very quickly. Again, this is where we put you in a certain situation. We can put it, it's normally even in a group setup, and we ask you to resolve that situation. And then we can assess your competencies, such as social functioning. Are you a loner? Do you take the lead in the group, etc. And then work sample test, actually giving you a work activity to do. Like drive the truck. Well, the truck might be too big or dangerous. There are even simulation exercises for these now in some companies. So it's similar to job knowledge tests, but these are used in situations where applicants need to possess specific required competencies upon entry of the workplace. So these are common, especially in the mining industry in Botswana. We do video interviews as well, like I said, and these are AI-powered video interviews that can also have face scanning algorithms, which are used to assess your tone, your word choice, and other factors. And these can, for example, be used to come up with a complete understanding of the individual. Exercise and games, earlier on, I've never seen this. These are not common in Botswana. It's around gamification, which are online tools that can be used to judge your abilities via playing games. Probably it's the next big thing. I know I spoke quite a lot. I was rushing through it, looking at the time. I just hope that you got a little bit of information. I just wanted to, before I conclude, to just say there is the bad and ugly side of recruitment and selection, where we know organizations have been not towing the line in terms of following good practices, especially when recruiting people, where they can take you to an interview and they know who it is that they want, etc. or where people are given jobs for certain favors, monetary, sexual, etc. So those things exist, or we hear of them. So it's just important, or not only we hear of them, but we've seen people even in Botswana being prosecuted for such behavior, whether it's from the organization perspective and from the individual perspective. So my encouragement to yourselves is that remain true to who you are, know yourself before you venture into the big world. Know what is it that you want, and have a plan. If you don't have a plan, then you are going to be doing every single thing. Two, the last one is, if you can start early to think of how you can, instead of being an employee, but being an employer, it's something that you need to also consider quite hard and be deliberate about it. Thank you very much. I hope I've given you some tips, and I'm open to questions.
No, go on.
Okay, I wanted to ask about the CV. I think you said to change your CV with every application, every different application that you put in. So I wanted to know, what do you think? What exactly do you think we should be changing in the CV?
Yeah, I think what is key to change in the CV, because sometimes the jobs require different types of competencies for if it's a different type of job. So you need to make sure that how you've written your cover letter and how your CV is, especially in terms of highlighting the fit to the job. So there needs to be some conscious validation that you do. So I would probably look at whether the hobbies talk to the job, the interests talk to the job, and the competencies that are put up there talk to the job, and the training that are put there talks to the job. Because sometimes you find that you can apply for multiple jobs, or you've got skills for multiple jobs, but your CV is just one. So it will be suicidal.
Yeah, I get the point now. Thank you. Thank you so much. Marigold, you can.
My question was on the referral bit. So if you've made an application with say the person's reference or who is referring you, when following up, do you chase where you've applied to, or do you then ask your referee to chase up on the process?
Yeah, I think a good question. And to be honest with you, I'll give you an answer that an answer that how I believe it should be. I believe that if you've gone through a referral and your application now is going to the company, you should be chasing up with the company. And as long as the referral should be able to give you that I've submitted any other contacts, etc. So that you chase it up that way. But what normally happens is that the company, once you've been referred, the company should be able to contact you as well. That's one. So I was chasing out the kid. Yeah, so that's one. Most companies in Botswana, including the ones that I've worked in, including my own company, are very, very poor at feedback, especially if you have applied. It's something that we are trying to work on, because on a daily basis, you can get 100 emails just asking you about a job. So these are things that sometimes you really just want to automate, and have some form of intelligence that can respond to people, because organizations can't keep up anymore. So some now just write, please note that only selected people will be communicated with. So already now you know that if they don't get hold of you, I hope I was audible.
It cut off a little bit after automated responses. No, after
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, what I was saying is that now some companies just simply write and say we only communicate with selected candidates. So, which is just a way of saying, please don't try and get hold of us.
I have a question about social media. So I wanted to know how harshly you guys judge social media.
You know, having your fun, hugging people, jumping around, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question, particularly around freelancing in Botswana. How popular is it, and how does one get to a point that they penetrate that market, if that's even a way of putting it? How do I get companies to take me on as somebody who says, okay, I would like to provide this service within your organization. This is what I can do. This is what I can do, and submit my CV. Or how else does one, apart from maybe submitting a CV to that company, then penetrate that market of being a freelancer?
Freelancing is very, 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 should I say, low in Botswana, and I get what you're talking about. It's an uncommon practice. It's probably work of the future. Well, people say we're in the future now. Like I was saying, there are certain things like gamification, freelancing. I see a lot of freelancing more with consulting companies, where you can be working for your KPMG, your Deloitte, your EOH, Olepaku, for example. But for you to say I'm freelancing with FNB, in fact, freelancing is even common more in the media fraternity. I've seen it quite a lot there. Mm-hmm. But in these formal corporate companies, it's not yet that, yeah.
Okay.
Emang, you've had your hand up. You can unmute and speak.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I have two questions. Am I audible?
Yeah, but it cuts off here and there.
Okay, should be perfect now. Two questions. First one is, how, as someone in the earliest part of your career, how do you negotiate your remuneration or salary in a way that doesn't harm your job prospect? Because I, for one, I love money, and I'm not afraid to tell you I want the money. So I've been in interviews where me being upfront with saying I need money because I trust the value I bring has often, I don't know, unsettled or rubbed off recruiters in an opposite way than I'd expect. And the second question is, in Botswana, what could be the main holdup in terms of having flexible working hours? Because you'd realize that people have different working styles or preferences. For example, there could be someone who prefers to work over the night, someone who doesn't prefer to wake up in the morning. What would it take for organizations to prepare or have systems in place to cater for flexible work in Botswana, in short? Thank you.
Okay, I think I can attempt to answer those hard questions, Emma. You remind me of a friend of mine, especially the first question. I did my undergrad at UCT, and we joined Botswana as graduate employees. This guy loved money with all his heart. He did not last more. He did not last more than 6 months in that campaign. So your negotiating power. Well, he didn't last. He lasted, I think, 6 months as graduates, and then he went on. Now he's an entrepreneur in the country, doing quite well. So companies are very, very rigid in terms of remuneration, especially for you or for entry-level persons. So I don't know whether, unfortunately, it's because it's an issue of supply and demand, one, and it's an issue of market forces, especially from a pay perspective. So you can't negotiate at your level. Yes, you can raise queries, not queries. Let me give you an example. We hired a diamond trading company. We hired a group of interns, and we paid them 3,000 pula per month. And then we hired, there are two different types. On the technical side, which is the diamond sorting, for example, we pay them approximately around 5,000 per month. So when you hire interns, and that's the general pay range in Botswana. So when you hire people like that, with that amount of money, and given now the hiking prices, they were feeling the pinch, but they took the offer, and once they're in, they now started raising demands. But what I like about it is that they're raising demands in a proper fashion and manner. They're not up in arms, etc., etc. So my advice to you is that, unfortunately, you don't have the power. You don't have the power. The power does not reside with you, given your circumstances. The power resides with the organization. You can only negotiate when you have the power. And when you can also twist the outcome. So that's when you can negotiate. If I can use a bit of Sichuan, is you can request. Other than then being labeled as, this one is going to be a problem child, he just wants money, 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 before he has done anything. So unfortunately, number one, your negotiating power is quite minimal. I love flexible working hours. And I think COVID has brought to the fore a number of changes, even in Botswana. I don't think it's enough. where I was in Diamond Trading Company, we introduced flexible working hours for people that could work. So the only challenge was around managing productivity when people are at home. So, I remember we had a debate in our executive committee meeting when somebody was saying, if you're working from home, I expect you by 8 o'clock to be sitting at your table at home. But when you're working from home, it doesn't work like that. So, but people in the office expect you, when you're working from home, you can work from 10 to 2 and then work from 8 to whatever time. And when people want you, they can get hold of you. So when you're working from home, the most important thing, get the results. So the only thing that people are struggling with that I think is prohibiting introducing flexi hours, the issue of trust and issue of productivity. Up until we go through the process, I wish for companies not to go back into working arrangements before COVID-19, that we continue the changes, then we can be able to get there. So there's an issue of culture as well that is really derailing us, that we need to change, Emma. Thanks.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Yeah, Anse, you can unmute or you can type it in the chat.
Thank you so much. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, sir. Kibidiwa Anse. I'm a final year accounting student. Thank you so much for your presentation. I was very much interested when you talked about the different levels of, or the different levels in terms of thinking patterns of possible candidates when you are recruiting. I think you talked about strategic, you talked about supervisory, and then you also talked about operational. I didn't know any of that. But then coming to today's COVID times, in terms of recruitment, of course, then would have to see companies looking for a certain employee in terms of their thinking pattern. And which do you think during such times is the most relevant? And what do you think we could be doing as prospective employees to develop those skills and mindset? Thank you.
Well put, Ansi. Again, I think you guys are asking very, very good questions, and your presentations that you guys are putting are top notch. In summary, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 different types of levels of thinking. They can be expanded further, and there's no right or wrong way of thinking. It is what it is. It's at the most bottom level. It's the operational domain. This is where there's a lot of touch and feel, that people think in, that they don't think in abstract terms. It's in concrete terms. It's what they see, what they can feel and touch and smell, and the results of whatever they do is probably up to 3 months, and then it's followed by a certain level which we call diagnostic. Now these are problem-solving level that you start now being able to still using your senses, but now you solve those problems that arise from the touch and feel, concrete and not complex stuff. As you move up, you now live in the VUCA world, which is volatile, ambiguous, I think abstract. I can conceptualize, verbal conceptualization, visual. I don't rely on memory, but I can. It's intangible information. I can see what others can't see. This is the realm of your people like your Nelson Mandela, your Virgin or Benson, the guy was Virgin.
Richard Branson.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, your Bill Gates type of people, etc. So these are guys that now change the order of the world. So you see, God, we don't, even there are people that you are with, sometimes people say, God, how well in hell. They can't see it, and there's nothing wrong with it. They really can't see beyond where they are. But you see now, even the operational guys, say the operational guys, you can be an accountant and be operational, because all you deal with is the numbers that I see. I don't want to think beyond these numbers, this paper and the numbers that are there. And then you can be an accountant and see beyond the numbers. And now you are more strategic. You can join the pieces, the dots, etc. So it's important that's why sometimes when you ask interview, you can pick it early on, because you need to be conscious. And I like what you said about mindset. You need to be conscious of where you want to go and how you want to get there. So that's the starting point. So if you want to be a solid accountant, a solid doctor can just be operational. Diagnose motho ke heletse ke siame ke botshelo jaka. There's nothing wrong with that. Ke ikamogela salary ya 10,000 pula ka kgwedi, botshelo ka moso the sun starting rises, sets. There's totally nothing wrong. But there are people who say, no, I'm a doctor. I want to change the world. I want to change the frontier. Now, these are the people that move the world forward. This is about innovation. It's about creativity. Now, that's what I was saying to you, yes, you need to be solid in your technical knowledge. Michal, you need to immerse yourself in other activities. You need to broaden your scope. You need to read widely. There's a nice book about mindset. If you Google the Abinja Institute, they speak a lot about mindset as well. So you need to open up your mind. You need to be diverse, but be solid in what you know. So when people ask you a question in an interview, don't think just for it. The question is never simple like that. There's something beyond that people are wanting to hear. One what an accounting principle. No. Okay, in short, but you need to think beyond that question. If people are asking me to explain this thing, do they want to hear a little bit more? My understanding, how does this thing fit in the bigger scheme of things? So yeah. So don't but we are ready to the dot. We are ready hela I khoma me ana ya ready. Ba bangwe bana ba khona go ingantsolla o khona go tlhaloganya re motho ga teng. So immerse yourself, Auntie. Read widely. Don't focus. Be a solid technical person, but think broader than what you are reading. Expand your mind. Question, interrogate a lot. Thanks.
Do you have any more questions before we close? No. This was a really amazing session. I came here to present, but I left learning more than I actually did beforehand. And thank you, MLUNGISI. It was very insightful, and you did really speak from the heart. You know, just now, opening mindsets, these are things that we think about, but we don't really do. You'd hear it in passing somewhere. You'd be like, oh yeah, I should probably read more. But it starts from when you enter the building, when you're coming to an interview. The first thing you say to people, that has an impact. So now if you're well read, you're able to, you know, relate with that person. You're able to speak about various things. We really thank you for that. And please do send us your social medias where we can find out more about the work of Tsammerek, or where we can sign up. We really do look forward to working with you again in future. And if that is all, thank you all for coming. We really are thankful that you guys keep coming to the sessions. We look forward to bringing more and more things to you guys. The Runway, we have, you know, we're doing this for the people, for you guys, because we are in similar boats. We want to get from A to B, and we want to all get to our dreams, you know, as our mission statement says. It's a mission statement. Building a bridge between the dreamers and their dreams. That's what we are trying to do, even our own dreams. So please keep on the lookout for part 3 coming in 2 weeks. The job, Zinzane. And yeah, like all our social medias and keep in touch. Thank you so much.